Chapters 17 and 18 see Paul and his companions moving down through the Roman provinces of Macedonia and Achaia before setting out east again via Ephesus back to his base in Antioch, which is in the province of Syria. From there, at the end of chapter 18, Paul sets out again on his third and final missionary journey. Chapter 17 features the speech Paul gave in Athens. He is distressed to see the city riddled with idols. As was his custom, he argued with the Jews in the synagogue, but he also drew the attention of some philosophers as he argued in the marketplace. Athens, some centuries before, had been home to the golden age of Greek culture and philosophy. Socrates had also argued and debated in the same marketplace. Paul really does show himself now to be all things to all men, as he can make the transition from more rural settings to educated elites. He is able to quote from their poets and is aware of the differences and similarities between Judaism and in particular the Stoics, though he also knows how he will offend the Epicureans. Nevertheless, despite the great skill in his rhetoric, alongside his powerful learning, the philosophers are baffled. They can't make head nor tail of Paul's discourse or statements, and in verse 18 call him a spermologos, translated by the NRSV as babbler. This term likens him to a bird pecking at crumbs, meaning that Paul is one of those who goes around picking up various ideas from different places, but not having an overall coherent system which he can expound and defend. Over the next few decades, as the gospel spread throughout the Greco-Roman world, it continued to confound people who couldn't make sense of Christianity either as a religion or as a philosophy, at least not as a good philosophy. The other opinion given about Paul is that he seems to be a proclaimer of foreign divinities. This sounds very similar to the charge against Socrates, which led to his trial at the Areopagus and then his death. Is Paul in the same danger? It seems not, though Luke is very likely intending his readers to notice the parallel. Rather, they bring Paul to the Areopagus because they enjoy hearing the latest ideas. Luke adds that their confusion was based on Paul's topic of the resurrection, which in Greek is anastasis. It seems as though they mistook this word for a second deity that Paul was commending alongside Jesus. The Areopagus was both a hill and the elite ruling council of Athens. Scholars are divided as to which Paul was brought to. My preference is that the council and not the hill. The main reason for this is that Luke mentions Dionysius, the Areopagite, who believed Paul's message. This really was a significant conversion in social terms, as this council represented the top level of Athenian society. The sticking point of Paul's preaching is, of course, the resurrection. Neither the Epicureans nor the Stoics, though they differed in their views of what happened after death, would have considered resurrection as an option, which to them meant something like becoming zombies, and was therefore disgusting and ridiculous. Despite the prestige of Athens, Paul leaves it for Corinth, its ancient rival. At this point, Corinth was the most important city in Greece. It sat at the perfect point between Europe and Asia, and also Greece and Macedonia. It was therefore very wealthy and strategic. There are no more major speeches in Paul's second missionary journey. What follows are some summaries of activity and some notable incidents. Paul meets Priscilla and Aquila, recently exiled from Rome by Claudius. The mention of Gallio as proconsul allows us to date Paul's lengthy stay in Corinth as the years 51 to 52. Without this crucial historical nugget, we would be unable to date much of what happens in Acts and with Paul. Once again, we see Jesus directly intervening to guide and comfort Paul in his ministry. In a vision at night, Jesus tells him to stay in Corinth. His statement that there are many of his people in this city probably assures Paul that he will be successful. That is, Paul's preaching will reveal who these people are as they respond to it. Paul, now with Priscilla and Aquila, travel east back to Antioch, but they stop at Ephesus, where he leaves the missionary couple, having, of course, engaged a synagogue. He continues on to Antioch, promising that he will return if God will allow, which he does in chapter 19. Meanwhile, Apollos is introduced as a powerful debater with good knowledge about Jesus. Nevertheless, some gaps need filling in by Priscilla and Aquila. Luke notes he only knows about John's baptism, which sets up the issue which Paul will deal with when he returns in chapter 19.